Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Just Keep Running with Evan Blakeney podcast. My name is Evan Blakeney, and today we are going to talk about running watches. Do you need one? Should you buy one? Is it worth it? Should you get a new one? Should you get a used one? What are the pros and cons of having a running watch? And so if you're on the fence about getting a running watch, this hopefully is a beneficial episode for you. I'm hoping that you get some value out of it, and maybe sharing my experience can help you with your experience. So with that, let's get right into the podcast. Today, I want to start off with a little bit of my personal story with running. I've got kind of a little bit of a start and stop with running. So I've kind of had like two different running journeys. The first one was quite a while ago when I was in college. I read the book Born to Run by Christopher McDougall. And of course, I loved it. I was overweight and I was looking to lose some weight. And I just thought, I feel like we were created to run. I feel like God made us with this incredible ability to run. And it's something that I can do to enjoy getting outside and get fresh air and get exercise and lose weight. And so I started running, and I had no goals whatsoever with running. I didn't want to do any races. I didn't want to set any sort of times. I didn't even know what a good time was or wasn't. There was no Strava back then. I didn't have any friends that ran. I just went to the store, got a pair of running shoes, and I started running by myself. And I really liked that. It was great. It was enjoyable. It was freeing. It was stress relieving for me. I thought it was fantastic. And because I didn't have any goals or any aspirations, I wasn't trying to do a marathon or a half marathon or anything like that. I had no training targets that I was going for. I just went out and ran. And I didn't know what a good time was or a bad time was. Like I said, there was no Strava back then or RunKeeper. There were watches and some GPS stuff coming out, but it wasn't big. You kind of only did that if you were, I think, really serious. It wasn't for a guy like me that was just running for fun and fitness and health and things like that. So I didn't have any of that stuff. I just went to the store, bought a pair of shoes, started running, and I ran a mile, and I thought that was pretty good. I ran a mile. That's cool. And eventually I could run a mile and a half. But my legs always hurt every time I got done running for a while, like months and months and months. Because again, I was very out of shape and hadn't ever really run before, like distance running. And so my progress was really slow, and I wasn't following any sort of plan or anything like that. I was just running for enjoyment and fitness, like I said. So I ran, I don't know exactly how long I was running for. I think away from home, I was working down in Connecticut, and I was staying at this LaQuinta hotel, and across the road, there was a plaza with, it had a Best Buy, a shopping mall, a Home Depot. There was quite a bit of stuff in there. And if I ran all the way around the whole perimeter of that plaza, the whole truck delivery route around the back of the buildings, all the way around the front, it was almost exactly a mile. I drove around it. Again, I didn't have a GPS or anything, so I just drove around it with my truck with the odometer and measured it. And it was pretty darn close to a mile. And the furthest I had run at that point was 2 miles. And I'd been running for a while. And I remember this one night, I went out and went across the road from the hotel after work. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go do 2 miles, So I ran a mile. And then I felt really good. And I ran the second mile. And that's as long as I'd ever gone. And I felt still pretty good. So I was like, I'm just going to go again. Did another mile. And I still felt really good. And I was like, go another mile. My legs really aren't hurting. I've kind of broken through that, constant pain phase of getting into running. And so I did 4 or 5 miles. I can't remember. I think it was 4 miles that night. And then that really just blew my mind. I felt it was incredible. I felt amazing. I was losing weight. I was getting in much better shape, and it just made me ecstatic that I was able to go that far. I was stoked. So then I just kept running. Eventually I got to the point where I could run 10 or 11 miles. And the cool thing about that was I never judged myself on time or pace or anything like that. I have no idea what my pace was. I wasn't timing myself. I don't know how long. They were probably like 12, 13-minute miles, maybe even slower. I don't know. And so I was never like really judging myself and hard on myself. And then eventually I kept running for a few years, got up to the point where I was doing some like 10-mile long runs. Again, I didn't have GPS. So I think my longest run was like 11-ish miles, maybe, uh, when I was in college, but I don't know for sure. And then I ended up hyperextending my left knee and couldn't run. And then the doctors told me like, oh, it should be fine in a little while. You didn't tear anything. You just sprained it, or strained. I think they said I strained my meniscus, if I remember right. And they said I should be able to get back in like 6 months. And then 6 months later, it was still hurting. Went saw another doctor, and he was like, oh yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. No one wanted to do anything about it. And it just never got to the point where I could really get back into running again. I've tried on and off a bunch of times since then, and I've never been able to get past 2 miles. Like maybe I could do 2.5, but then my knee would really start feeling it. I'd have to ice it and stuff. And for whatever reason, last year, kind of the same situation I was in before, I decided to get back into running. Overweight again. Missed running. I really enjoyed running, always have. And I was like, I'm just gonna try again. We'll see where this goes. So I'm like, I'm just gonna try again. We'll see what happens. And hopefully my knee is getting better. It's been a while. I graduated in 2011. It's 2026. It's been 15 years, basically, since I hurt my knee. So I'm like, all right, maybe it's okay now. And it actually has been okay. So I don't know, maybe it just fixed itself at some point. And so I've been able to get back into running again. But this time there's a difference. And the difference is RunKeeper, Strava, watches, and a friend who runs. So my running experience this time has been a lot different. And I just started getting back into running last year, about 8 months ago. It was like July, August of last year. And my buddy that I went to college with, who ironically didn't run in college, but now he's gotten super into running the last few years. He's done a marathon. He's done a 60-mile ultra marathon, of a couple 50K ultra marathons. He's been getting really into it. And he texted me just randomly out of the blue. I hadn't talked to him about running ever in our entire friendship. And he goes, hey, there's this ultra marathon next year in August of 2026. Like close to where you live, and I was thinking of doing it. You want to do it with me? It's like, you could get into running and you could start training for it, and then we could do it together. So I'm like, that's kind of funny. I just started training to run, or like not training for anything, but just started running again. And so we started talking, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. That'll be cool. That'll be like a cool goal for me, And so we're going to do, the plan is anyways, as long as neither of us get hurt or anything, the plan is to do, it's called the Jigger Johnson White Mountain Ultra Marathon. I think I'm probably getting that name wrong. But it's in August 2026, and they have a 20-mile, 50-mile, and 100-mile option. I'm going to be limited to the 20-mile no matter what, because if you haven't done a 20-mile like wilderness race and navigated and in the mountains and on trails, they won't let you go past the 20 miles. They're like, you kind of need to start there. And I'm not going to probably be ready to go any further than that anyways. So this time with running, that's kind of been the goal that I've had in mind, that ultra marathon and running with my friend. And then I also have Strava now. My friend's on Strava. So now I'm constantly seeing his numbers. And, he's been running now for 3 years or so, 4 years, something like that. And like I said, he's done a couple marathons now. He's done several ultras. He's planning on doing a 100-mile ultra this year. So, I mean, he's kind of way ahead of me in his running journey now, obviously. And, but it's still, I see his numbers. I see his heart rate. I see his pace. I see, what he's doing. And I'm like way back here, I'm running like 10.5-minute miles. Like I'm like struggling to try to get below 10-minute miles. Like I can do it for a few miles, but that's like really killing me. My heart rate's going up to like 170, 175. And I see him, doing his daily workouts, and he's running like 820s at like I don't know, like a 145 heart rate or something. And I'm like, man, like, just, like it's killing me. And So this time, like, because I'm getting into running again with a goal in mind, it's really changed the dynamic of how I look at myself and how I view my progress. And then, so last October, I did a 10K. I was shooting to break an hour. It was an hour, 1 minute, and 28 seconds. So I didn't quite make my goal, but my PR before that was 1 minute, an hour and 7 minutes. So I still improved a lot, but it wasn't what I was hoping for. And then I'm doing a half marathon soon, and I just did 10 miles in my training block for that. So I'm making progress, probably faster than I made progress the last time that I got into running, and I'm probably advancing a lot faster than last time, but I've actually been a lot harder on myself, if that makes sense, because of the watch, because of Strava, because of watching my friends' numbers, and because of having these goals now. Like I said last time, like I didn't even know what good times were. I wasn't chasing my heart rate. I wasn't doing any of that sort of thing. I wasn't keeping track of all that. So, like I said, when I ran that 4 or 5 miles when I was at work, I, for all I know, like I said, I was doing a 12-minute mile, a 13-minute mile. I have no idea, but I felt amazing about it. Whereas, like now, if I did that, I'd be like, oh my word, my heart rate was so high and my pace was so slow. And my buddy would have been going way faster than this. And I'm just like, so far away from where I want to be. So, long story short, that's kind of like the problem, I guess, that I see with a running watch. And that's a trap that I think a lot of people fall into. Obviously, a lot of us deal with looking for the word here, imposter syndrome, and can't, you know, can't give ourselves the gratitude for what we've accomplished, like even when I ran that 10K, I was stoked that I ran the 10K. It was fun. I enjoyed it. But and I was proud of myself for doing it, but at the same time I was like, I didn't break an hour, and like I should have done it. I should have been better. I should have trained harder. I should have pushed harder, whatever. And that is definitely a risk with any sort of wearable, any sort of tracking, whether it's Strava or RunKeeper or any of them. Like they all increase the odds of that happening. So that's one thing that I think we, like as a running community, need to be careful of, because so many of us, like I know so many people do struggle with like imposter syndrome and not feeling like a real runner. And I'm like totally in that boat. I feel like a total fraud. I'm still out of shape. I'm not nearly in the shape that I want to be in. I'm still running way slower than I want to be. And I look at other people, especially with social media now. That's another thing we didn't have back then. Now we've got social media and we've got all these people posting their, 100-mile world record. That lady, I can't remember her name right now. I'm sorry, but the lady just broke the record. She did 100 miles in like 12 hours. It's insane to see stuff like that. You see Annie Glaze, you see Cam Hanes, you see David Goggins, you see these people running like 200 miles. You see just all these crazy people. David Roche. You see like all these crazy people just like crushing these records and running so fast, and like that just kind of builds up, I think, a lot of that imposter syndrome. It does for me anyways. I assume it does for other people. I hope it does for other people. Hopefully I'm not all alone here. But yeah, so that's one thing I would just caution people with when it comes to anything. And it's something that I struggle with. But I do think there are still a lot of benefits. That's kind of like my big PSA, my warning to everybody, like, this is definitely a danger, but there's also a lot of benefits from it. So now let's get into the pros of buying a running watch, what I got, why I got it, how I got it, all that type of stuff. All right. So I got I'll take it off so I can show it to you. Garmin 955 Solar. So far, I love this thing. It's really cool. I've had it for a couple months now. And one of the things I really like about it, so it gives you this training readiness right here, right? And it bases it on your sleep and what you've done recently and all that type of stuff. How much running you've been doing, how much training you've been doing, how much sleep you've been getting, all of those types of things. And I think it uses your heart rate variability in there, and it comes up with this training readiness number. And it's pretty cool. It is actually very helpful, I think, because it helps me to know, like, there's been a couple times where I woke up and I felt really tired and I was like, man, I don't know if I feel like running. Maybe I should just skip today because I'm tired. And I look at it and I'm like, and it says that my training readiness is high. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I'll just trust it. I'm trying to get used to it, trying to see how it does. So I'm like, I'll just trust it and see what happens. And I ended up having a really good run. So I guess Garmin knows my body better than I do somehow, some way, based on all the data that they track. So that has actually been pretty helpful. And there was one time where I actually was like, I was planning um, through this training block that I'm kind of just finishing my half marathons in a couple days now. Through this training block, I've had goals. I want to do this weekend. I want to do this next week. I want to run this many miles, and I want to run this day, this day, this day. And sometimes life just gets in the way. I work construction, so sometimes like I'm just beat after a couple days of working 12, 13, 14 hours, depending on what we're doing. It's not every day, but it's not that uncommon either. So like I have this set path in my mind for the week, and I've looked at my watch, and it's like, it told me training readiness low and recovery need extremely high need. It's like, you really need to just worry about recovering right now. And I was planning to do like a 4-mile run on the treadmill. And I was like, all right, maybe I need to just take a day off. So that has actually been pretty helpful, listening to that. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to get a watch, was so that it could keep track of that type of stuff. So that, I think, has been super helpful. And if you're a person that maybe has a hard time listening to their body, or if your life is really chaotic and it's not like super consistent, like mine is not consistent at all. My job is not like a 9-to-5 job where I'm just like every single day I go to the office and I do the same amount of work. Like someday I'm running an excavator for the entire day, and it's pretty easy on my body. And then some days I am shoveling. If we pour concrete, you're raking concrete, shoveling concrete, screeding it off, smoothing it out, all that type of stuff. We do a lot of electrical work, so sometimes we're pulling cables. If we don't have a cable puller because it's not available on that job site, like you're just basically like doing deadlifts for 6 hours sometimes, just trying to pull cables in. So like sometimes my job is really demanding. And then, like I said, other times I might be moving equipment around and driving my truck all over for a whole day and not do anything physical. So it's really hard for me sometimes to like know where my body's at and what's going on. So if that's like you, if you have a really chaotic schedule, if your job is not predictable and you end up with these kind of like peaks and valleys in your everyday physical activity, I think some sort of wearable that's tracking all that information and taking it all into account and trying to tell you where you stand and trying to help you understand like what your body needs is very helpful. It's been really helpful for me. So I would put that in a serious pro category for getting a watch. I guess this could go for any other wearable, but I think most people end up going with a watch. So that's what I'm focusing on here. The other thing is, like I said, the way I was training the first go around, when I guess you can't even really call it training because I wasn't training for anything. I was just running. But the way I was doing it that time, like I really didn't know if I was getting any better. Like I didn't really keep track of my pace. I didn't really keep track of anything. I would just like drive with my truck and, do the little trip meter and figure out like, oh, this is a mile. If I go to here and turn around, it'll be 2 miles, and I wasn't timing anything. I didn't know what my pace was. So I didn't really know if I was improving or not. And I never really pushed myself. I never had any sort of structured plan. I never had any sort of like training plan that I was following where I'm going to do like a long run. I'm going to do slow runs. I'm going to do sprints or, whatever. It was just like, I get done work and I go run, and that was it. So I didn't know if I was really progressing. I didn't know if my time was getting better. I never tracked my heart rate. I had no idea how you would even track your heart rate back then. So, keep in mind, this is like 18 years ago when I started last time. So in that regard, having a watch or some sort of wearable or some sort of technology that's tracking what you're doing is definitely helpful. If you're looking to train for some sort of a goal, like whatever it is, a 5K, a 10K, half marathon, ultra marathon, whatever it is, your PR at a mile, whatever, 800 meters, anything that you're like really trying to set some sort of a target based on a distance and a time, any situation like that, I think you would definitely benefit from having a watch, just because you're able to see like, okay, last week I ran, my long run and my average pace was this is an exact example for me, actually. So in my training block, my long runs went from 6 miles, 7 miles, 8 miles, 9 miles, 10 miles. And then I've been kind of easing off into the race since the 10-mile long run. So when I did the 7-mile run, my pace was 11:17, and my average heart rate was like 140, high 140s, 147, 148, somewhere around there. And then a couple weeks later, when I did my 9-mile long run, my pace was 10:40 and my heart rate was still in the 140s, but it was a few lower. I think it was like 144, somewhere around there. So like I can see, okay, what I'm doing is working. Like the stuff I'm doing, the slow runs trying to build my base, the faster runs trying to get my muscles in shape and all that type of stuff is actually working. It is actually providing a noticeable benefit. Whereas without the watch, I would have no clue. And that's really why I bought it, because I wanted to know if I was improving or not. And yeah, before, like when I was training for the 10K that I did last year, I didn't have a watch yet. I didn't have the money to invest in it. I just wasn't there yet, so I didn't have one. And it was actually harder than I would have thought that it would be to tell if I was getting better or not. Like you'd think in your head you should just be able to tell, like, well, yeah, obviously I'm getting better, but it's actually harder than you think, especially like if you're not tracking your heart rate and like really seeing the pace breakdowns and stuff. For me anyways, it was like I really didn't know if I was getting better. And some days like you think you're pushing hard and it feels like a pretty high effort, but maybe you just didn't sleep good the night before. Maybe maybe you're too hungry. Maybe you didn't eat enough. Maybe you're not hydrated enough, whatever it might be. Whereas like when you can kind of keep tabs on your heart rate, I feel like you actually can know like, okay, yeah, this feels hard, but I'm actually not working that hard. Or like, oh, this feels really easy because like maybe I did sleep really good and I ate well and all that stuff. And like, I feel good, but like I need to be careful because I'm going to redline my heart rate. Like my heart's getting up there, even though I feel better. And so you can kind of tell like a little bit more whether you're improving or not. So that's been a big help for me. The other thing that's been super helpful is I don't have the paid Strava. I don't know how the paid Strava works. I just have the free version because I'm cheap, but it doesn't tell you what your pace is while you're running. I've got my phone in a zippered pocket or wherever, even in an open pocket. Like I'm still not pulling it out all the time to look at it. So maybe it does tell you your pace while you're running. I don't actually know, but it doesn't it's not a convenient way to do it. So you're running and you're trying to get a pace, you're trying to do something. And like I said before, sometimes your perceived effort doesn't really match what's actually happening. So I would have a hard time, especially on my long runs, figuring out like where I was pace wise. And if I was like on target for my, my hour 10K time or not. I was trying to kind of feel if like, is my body capable of this? Can I do that? And I really couldn't do it effectively. At the end of the run, I would see, oh, I was way off, or like, oh, I was kind of close or whatever. But like during the run, you can't adjust and try to like really pace yourself very well. So having the running watch is like amazing for that. Just super easy. Just look at it real quick. Boom, this is my pace, whatever. Keep going. This is how long I've been running. This is how far I've gone. I love it for that. It's really, really helpful for that. The other thing that's helpful is zone 2 runs. If you're new to running, zone 2 is like, conversational pace. If you've been running for a while, I'm sure you've heard a lot of people talk about zone 2. I'm not going to pretend to know a whole lot about it because I'm just a dude who's not in very good shape trying to get better at running. But anyways, I kept hearing people say like zone 2, you got to stay in zone 2, you got to stay in zone 2. And like, I kind of thought I was, but I was like, well, maybe this is zone 2 and I'm just breathing a little heavier than they say. Because I'm a little overweight and like, maybe I should just stay at this pace. Well, it turns out that for me, zone 2 is even more painfully slow I realized it was. Oh man, it's terrible. It's like so slow. Like when I first tried to do a zone 2 run with my watch on, I was like, it's got to be like 10 and a half, 11 minutes, right? A mile would be zone 2. No, I'm like 13 minutes a mile to try to keep it in zone 2. And it's like, and I'm like still creeping up. So that's actually been helpful to know. It's also been very frustrating to actually make myself run in zone 2. It boring and difficult to run that slow, and I haven't been able to track it very long, and I haven't probably spent nearly enough time working on that like low end aerobic base. So hopefully it'll get better, hopefully at some point, a 9-10 minute mile ends up in zone 2 for me in a year or so. I don't know like what's realistic or not, but yeah, just having the watch and being able to track that has been fantastic. The other thing that I think is super handy about it is having the VO2 max. VO2 max is from again, I'm not out here pretending to be any sort of expert on any of this stuff, physiological, anything. I think that's the right word. It might not even be the right word. I don't know. I'm not any sort of coach. I'm not any sort of like exercise scientist or anything. So anything I say like this, like what I'm about to say with VO2 max is just me regurgitating stuff I've read online. So hopefully it's accurate. But from what I've been told anyways, and from what I read, it seems like VO2 max is a very good indicator of your fitness, essentially. It has to do with basically how much oxygen your body can handle at a time. So if your lungs and heart and everything can take in more oxygen and get it to your muscles quickly, you'll be more fit and more athletic. But that's the long and short of it. That, as far as I understand, again, I'm not an expert in this at all, but your watch comes up with a VO2 max. I've seen some videos. Some people say it's not that accurate. It's not perfect, but like nothing's perfect. So I'm not going to get that worried about it, but it does give you a number. And the way I look at it in my stupid brain, my very mechanical head, is like, well, if it's not accurate, then it should be not accurate consistently, hopefully. So even if the number's wrong, like mine, I think says like 42, is I guess in the middle of the like okay range, which is very average. But like if it's off with that 42 and then it says I'm 44 in a month or so, like, did I get 2 better? I would assume so. So like you could still track progress, even if the number itself isn't perfectly accurate. You should still be able to track your progress. So that seems like a win to me. And that I think is a pretty beneficial thing to track, because again, it's not necessarily, like I was talking about before with like perceived effort and actual effort aren't necessarily the same thing. I feel like the VO2 max is kind of like, doesn't really matter like what you perceive, like that's kind of a real indicator of your fitness level. So that's a good thing to track progress wise. So the other thing that I like about my watch that I really haven't been able to try out too much yet, because it's winter in Maine and I haven't been able to like get out and do a lot of stuff that I kind of wish I could do. But the Garmin watch I think they call it like a triathlon watch or a multisport watch. So it'll do like swimming, biking. I have done some like weightlifting sessions with it, which basically you just tell it you're lifting weights and it start timing you, and then based on your heart rate, it estimates how many calories you're burning. I don't think there's really any way for it to know that, because it doesn't know what weight I'm lifting or anything. But anyways, it's like, okay. But I do, when it starts getting a little warmer out and there's no more snow on the roads, I definitely want to try the cycling, especially when we go swimming. Definitely want to try the swimming aspect of it. I'm curious to, like, sometimes I'll swim with my family in the lake, like take out the pontoon boat and just throw the anchor down and go swimming. And like, I'll swim to a rock or something and back. And I have no idea how far I swam. So I'm really excited for that. I'll be able to see like how far I swam, how many calories I burnt doing it, that sort of thing. That's really exciting to me. So that's one thing I like about the watch I got. Again, you might get a different watch. That's perfectly fine. I think most of them can do that now. Pretty much all of the watches I was looking at have a lot of the same features. So I think it'll be the same no matter what you get. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is who needs a running watch? Well, obviously, people didn't start running until running watches were invented. So I guess everybody, right? Wait, no, it's kind of the opposite. Human beings have been running for millennia without running watches. So no one needs a running watch, right? But to make it kind of brief, kind of simple, I would say anybody who has a goal that they are training for would benefit to at least some degree by having a watch. And anybody that is not training for a goal, if you just were like me, that my first go around where you just want to go run, which is kind of pure and nice in a way. I actually kind of miss it a little bit because now I'm like so goal focused. But if you're like that, maybe don't even bother. Maybe just skip the watch altogether. Just go out and enjoy yourself. Don't worry about your pace. Don't worry about your time. It is kind of a good thing. Lately, I've been like not wearing my headphones and no music when I do my long runs, just to like get back into that. Like, oh yeah, I like this. I don't need to distract myself from running. Like, I actually do like this. So if you're kind of more of a purist like that, maybe a watch isn't for you. If you're not, training for a world record or your PR in a marathon or half marathon or something like that, then maybe just don't worry about it. I don't think it's something that you absolutely have to have. And like I said, it can kind of be a bummer sometimes, to be honest with you, when you look at like other people's numbers than your numbers and you're like, wow, I thought I was okay at it, but I suck. So maybe just don't bother. If that's you. If there's no reason to have it, just skip it altogether. So another thing a lot of people wonder about is GPS accuracy. So far, I've done a couple tests with my watch and my phone, and I have both Strava and RunKeeper on my phone. This watch is a multi-band GPS, so it'll monitor multiple different GPS frequencies at the same time, which is allegedly more accurate. And it does seem to be more accurate than my phone. A lot of times with my phone, like, you can tell like it got a reading here and I ran around a corner, it got a reading here, and it just draws a straight line where like I know there was a corner in the road, and with this it's very accurate. Like it follows, and like there was a couple times where there was some snow out into the shoulder. So I actually ended up crossing and running on the right side of the road for a minute just because I felt like, even though you're kind of supposed to be on the left side, I felt like it was safer to cross over to the other side for a minute, and it was a long straight stretch. So I kind of went over there and then went back to the left side of the road. And I checked it after on the map in my watch. I mean, it literally tracked like pretty accurately what route I ran around that snowbank. So the GPS accuracy so far with my experience with this has been way better than my phone on either Strava or RunKeeper, and it's been pretty darn accurate. So that was one thing I was a little concerned about. So I kind of wanted to address that here. That's been really good, and I'm really stoked on that. Battery life's another thing I wanted to talk about. So we're going to get into this in a little bit here. I bought my watch used, and we'll discuss my thoughts on that in a little bit and how I went. I got the Forerunner 955 Solar, and I was a little worried. That was my main thing with buying a used watch, was like, what if the battery sucks? There's no way for me to know how old this watch was. Maybe I could call Garmin and give them the serial number or something. They could figure it out, but like, I don't know how old it was. I bought it used on eBay. They came out with the 955, I think, in 2023. So it could be like 3 years old, or there's still some like new ones for sale now. So I'm like, maybe someone bought it last year and it's not that old. Maybe it's 3 years old and somebody used the ever loving what out of it. So I really don't know how old it is, and that was my main concern with the age was battery life. And so far, so good for me personally. It's been fantastic. I've been charging it every Sunday. That's kind of my normal routine. I charge it every Sunday, and it's been perfectly fine. And then a couple of weeks ago, I forgot to charge it on Sunday, and I got to like Wednesday, and I still had like 30% battery left. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to like see how far this thing goes. So I had charged it Sunday, and I didn't charge it again for almost exactly 2 weeks. It died Saturday night. I charged it Sunday evening around like 7, 8 o'clock. And then I, that's next Saturday or 2 Saturdays later, I was trying to see if it would go for 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks. And I got up in the middle of the night and it was like 2 a.m. and my watch was still on, just down to 1%. And then I woke up at like 6:30 or so in the morning and it had died. So it didn't quite make it 14 days exactly, but it came very close. And I ran like 16 miles and 18 miles or something like that, those two. So that was, I thought, pretty good. A couple of those runs were outdoor with GPS tracking. A bunch of them were, just indoor on the treadmill, but still, tracking the event. So I was very impressed with the battery life. So another thing that I've been really happy with my watch is the suggested workouts. Another thing, I put the half marathon in, like you can add events on your Garmin Connect app, so it knows that I'm going to do this half marathon here soon, and it'll do like daily suggested workouts. So it'll tell you like, oh, today you should run this far at this pace or whatever. And it kind of goes along with that training readiness that I mentioned before, where it takes all that data into account and how you slept and what your goal is and what you've been doing for training, what's kind of lacking in your training. It'll tell you like, here's like a good window for you to be in, like the amount of time you spend anaerobic. This is good amount of time in like your lactate threshold. And this is like a good amount of time in your aerobic zone. And it'll tell you like, hey, like you've been doing a lot of these too, you need to do more of this. So like, why don't we do a long slow run, 11-minute miles for 6 miles or something like that. So it'll make those suggestions for you, which is really cool. And there's been several days, again, I did kind of have that training plan that I was trying to stick to that I mentioned earlier, but there were a couple days where I was like, you know what, I'm just going to listen to my watch instead. And it really kind of felt like it nailed it. Like it seemed like it was the right thing for me to do on that day. And I felt like I kind of got a good bit of benefit from it. So that's been really cool. I've been happy with that. And yeah, I think that'll help you reach your training goals for sure. So another thing I want to talk about is the comfort or comfortability. Comfortability, I think is a word maybe. So I've never liked things on my wrists. I've never owned bracelets. I've never owned a watch. This is the first watch I've ever owned in my entire life. I've never been big on my wrist. And I will say that has been a bit of an adjustment for me. It's taken a while to get used to it, especially at night. And it kind of like, you don't have to wear it at night. Like you can just only wear it when you're running, which was kind of my plan at first. And then I realized like all the different stuff that it could do and tell you if it was tracking your sleep and doing all this stuff. I'm like, oh, I guess I kind of have to wear it like all the time. That's what I've been doing now. And it still bothers me a bit at night sometimes, like especially at night when I'm restless and like tossing and turning. I'm like, this thing's wicked annoying. But for the most part, it doesn't bother me. I've kind of gotten used to it, and I don't really notice it anymore. It's just kind of there, just part of my life, So I think that's probably the best thing I can say for its comfort. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't bother me. That's pretty good because things on my wrist usually bother me. And like I said, I definitely had to get used to it for a little while, but it's really kind of been fine. I wasn't sure if I would like these rubber straps or not. When I was a kid, it seemed like everybody was wearing like nylon straps, and now everybody's got these like silicone rubber straps. And I wasn't sure if I was going to like them. I thought it would be a little weird, especially when you get sweaty. But they really haven't been bad. The clasp is good. It's easy to adjust. Sometimes I do like go to bed with it too tight, and I'll wake up in the middle of the night and just like loosen it up and take it down a notch. So that's good. I'm glad I can do that in the dark because it needs to happen sometimes. So that's good. I think they've done a really good job with that design on this particular watch. And yeah, I've been happy with it. I can't really complain. All right. So now let's talk about buying this watch used. So I went back and forth a lot on whether I was going to buy a used watch or a new watch. And I can't make that decision for you, but I can just kind of walk you through why I decided what I decided to do, right? So new watch, obviously, you're going to get a known quantity with a warranty. If anything's wrong with it, you just call them, send it back. huge peace of mind there. And that's obviously a huge benefit. Used watch, you don't get that. You know, so I went on eBay. There were a couple other used websites selling stuff. There were some used ones on Amazon, but they were like, their prices were kind of like way out of whack. Like I would just buy a new one at their price. They were like $80 less than new. So I would just buy new at that point, you know? So this watch, as far as I can tell, was about a $700 or $800 watch, I think, brand new when it first came out. And then it was down to like $500, something like that. Towards the end of its life cycle. And, I ended up getting it for $250 on eBay. So obviously that's why I bought it. Like there's not a whole lot of other benefit to buying used other than the price, right? That's the main thing. The things I looked for was the guy on eBay that I bought it for. Personally, I wouldn't buy anything from someone on eBay unless they have a ton of really good reviews. So this guy had like 4,000 positive interactions with like a 97% customer satisfaction rate. So that to me was very positive and a big reason why I decided to go with that one. And then part of the reason there were several others of this model and even the non-solar model that were a little bit more expensive. And this one had a couple scratches on it. And the guy did a good job of getting those in pictures and showing you what the damage was. I don't know how much you could really see on here, but there are a couple little scratches on the screen. If you're watching on video, you might be able to see those. I have no idea if my camera's actually picking that up or not. But yeah, so like I said before, I work construction. I do concrete, dirt work, electrical work. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to scratch it worse than that. So the scratch really wasn't a big deal to me. And it got the price down quite a bit lower than all the other ones I was looking at. So that was a huge positive for me and a huge reason why I went with this particular watch. Another thing, this is just me personally, like my opinion. I wouldn't buy something used unless it's at least like half off of new. There were a ton of watches that I saw, like I said, that were like used watches, no warranty, no nothing. And they're like 70% of new, 60, 70% of the cost of new. And to me, again, like it's totally up to you. You make your own decision. But to me, that it's got to be at least half off for me to think it's worth it. Otherwise, I'm just going to go get a new one. You know, the other thing you could always do is like, I ended up going with a 955. You don't need to go with like a top of the line flagship watch either. Like I could have gotten the Garmin 265 new for I think $349, and that was like a pretty good deal, I thought. So that's certainly an option too. You can look at a more budget friendly new watch rather than the used watch. I just thought when I looked at all the features that this one had, especially like the biggest thing was that it had that multi-band GPS, so it's more accurate tracking. That was a big deal for me. The battery life. Again, I was worried about the battery life because it is used, but I was like, if the battery's in good shape, it should be a really long-lasting battery from the sounds of it. Those are kind of all the things that influenced my decision and why I went with this. And it's only been a few months, been 3 months, I think. But so far, I've been really happy with it. Obviously, if you buy new, like I said before, you've got the warranty. If anything goes wrong, from what I've read online, I can't speak from experience, but it sounds like most of the companies, whether it's like the Coros Pace Watch or Garmin or even like Apple and stuff like that, they all seem to do a pretty good job of standing behind their products. So if you do get a new one, it seems like that warranty is pretty good peace of mind, which I don't have. Like I said, it's been 3 months. It's been great so far, but it could just poop the bed tomorrow and I'm out $250 and looking for a new watch. So perhaps that'll become an issue. I hope it doesn't. Like I said, all I can speak about is my experience so far. And it's been great so far. One major frustration though in the whole eBay buying purchase, and I can't really blame it on eBay, but like you buy something on Amazon, right? Like I could have bought a new one on Amazon and I would have had it either the next day or the day after that, like 2 days max, right? Amazon Prime, everybody loves it. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's eBay or I don't know if it's that seller that I bought it from. They sent it post office. It was in Virginia. I ordered it on a Sunday night. It took 2.5 weeks to get here through the post office. I was like, oh my word, it's like after Christmas. What are we doing? Why are we this busy? Like, it should not take that long to get something from Virginia to Maine. And like, it got to Massachusetts. It was like, obviously, you buy something new, you're excited about it, right? So I'm tracking it every night. I'm like, oh, where is it now? Tracking never. Dude, it was stuck in Massachusetts at the same distribution center for like 4 days. I was like, what is going on? So that was one major frustration. If I would have gotten a new one, honestly, I would have just driven to Best Buy and bought one. Um, and that would have been great because then I wouldn't have had to wait it at all. So yeah, that was probably the biggest negative so far about buying used was the amount of time I had to wait to get it. Not the end of the world. I got it. It's over. It's fine, but still just annoying. Yeah, that sucked. All right. So last thing I want to talk about is connecting it to your Strava or RunKeeper. I always had RunKeeper. When I got back into running this time, I found it first and then ended up getting Strava after. And it's been super simple with the Garmin Connect app. You just connect that up to Strava, to that. And one of the things I really love about having the watch is I don't have to mess with my phone and get a workout set up on one of those apps and set it up to track and GPS and all that stuff on that app. All I do is literally just like start on my watch, do the run, and it syncs it with Strava after. So that's been really helpful. I love that. Especially like I live in Maine, gets cold. I've been running as much as I can outdoors. Like sometimes I just can't really physically run outside because it's like snowing and there's plows on the road. And I don't like, there's no sidewalks where I live. So it's pretty much like you're going to die if you run down the road and a plow comes by and he doesn't see you. So, but I do run outside as much as I can. And then you're like, you know, like there was one day I ran, I think it was like 4 below zero or something like that. Like it was pretty chilly out. So like I'm all bundled up and stuff. I don't want to mess with my phone. I don't want to mess with gloves. So that's been great with the watch. Literally, like even with my gloves on, just like one button to hit, you know, to start an activity and you're off and running, and then it syncs with everything after. You know, you don't have to worry about like opening all these different apps and starting stuff or anything like that. So that to me has been another huge benefit. You basically just need to look at your situation, your goals, what you're doing, and decide if you need a watch or not. I think a lot of people would benefit from having a watch because I think a lot of people that are running do have at least some goal in mind and do at least have some desire to track their progression. So I think it would be a good idea for pretty much the wide majority of runners to get a watch. Me personally, like I would push you towards it. You don't have to get a really expensive one though. That is one thing that I've realized. Like after having the 955, which I got kind of like obsessed with, like having one of the higher end watches when I was looking at them. Like some of the features don't matter that much. So like feel free to just get like a basic, much more basic watch, especially like a model older. Like if you look at like the Coros Pace 3, like I think you can get those like brand new ones pretty inexpensive now for like I want to say $200, right around $200. So that's pretty reasonable. You can get a new Garmin one. What is it? Once like Forerunner 165 or something like that. I think those are in the low 200s, 250s, somewhere around there. So I mean, there are options to spend the same amount of money that I did and get a brand new watch, which honestly, in hindsight, might have been smarter. But I guess I'm just a sucker for the marketing. You know, you go on Garmin's website and they're like, watches for beginner runners, watches for intermediate runners, watches for elite runners. And I'm like, well, I'm not an elite runner, but maybe this is this is how their marketing gets to you, right? You're like, maybe if I buy a watch for elite runners, it'll make me more elite, right? So then I get like obsessed with the higher end watches. Uh, but yeah, it's not a necessity. I think you should probably get a watch, but you should probably not get so obsessed with like a high end watch like I did. I do love it. I think it's a great watch, but I don't think I use it to its fullest potential. I don't think I needed that high end of a watch. So, you know, take that into consideration. And hopefully you've gotten some sort of benefit out of this. If you're on the fence about getting a watch, hopefully I touched on something here today that matters to you, that you've been questioning, that you've been thinking about. And if you got any sort of value out of this at all, please hit the like button, subscribe, do all of the things you're supposed to do on the internet when someone asks you to, I guess. Is it like, subscribe, share, comments. Comments are good ones. And a review. Yeah, review it. That'll be helpful too. So yeah, if you like this podcast, do all those things. And until next time, just keep running.